After the first presidential debates were held in 1960, they did not have another one for 16 years. That was no accident. According to White House tapes, that just had to come to light.
The tapes show President Nixon talking about debates with his top advisors. Bill Plante is at the White House with this story. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Nora. Well, you know, Barack Obama was not the only candidate for president to have a bad debate experience. In that first debate ever in 1960 between John Kennedy and Richard Nixon, despite his years in the Senate and his time as vice president, came off more poorly on TV than the less experienced Kennedy. And new tapes show that that poor performance lingered with Nixon for years to come.
It would be rather difficult to cover them in 2.5 minutes.
This is the debate that Richard Nixon could never live down.
And which party do we want to lead the United States?
Mr. Nixon, would you like to comment on that statement?
I have no comment.
Going head-to-head with Senator John Kennedy in 1960, then Vice President Nixon looked sweaty and uncomfortable compared to a tan, relaxed Kennedy. In recently uncovered audio recordings, Nixon lamented that performance in a candid conversation with his White House Chief of Staff, Bob Haldeman.
Remember, even on the first debate, we made a mistake or we got prepared to work like hell. But we didn't run out of goddamn schedule so hard. We didn't learn from the others. We're never going to come to mistake again.
Nixon never did make that mistake again. Not when he ran in 1968.
Nixon didn't want to debate in 68 because then he had the experience of 1960 behind him.
And not in 1972 when he was up for re-election and his opponent, Senator George McGovern, challenged him to a debate. Historian Ken Hughes of the University of Virginia's Miller Center found these tapes of President Nixon. In this never-before-heard recording, Nixon cites national security concerns as a reason for not debating.
It wouldn't serve the interest of the country, particularly at this time when very important negotiations are taking place involving matters of very great importance to the nation and which cannot be discussed, cannot and should not be discussed in a debate forum.
At the time, the Vietnam War was a major issue. And in that same conversation with Press Secretary Ron Ziegler, the president gives instructions for a statement from his campaign denying McGovern's debate request.
What should he say? That the no incumbent president should debate his opponent?
That's right.
The differences between these two are so great that they don't need a debate to bring them out.
They don't. Right.
How's that sound to you?
Yeah, good.
But Richard Nixon can't resist saying that if there were a debate, he'd win.
Nixon, as far as he was concerned, was a champion debater, and he would completely destroy George McGovern if given a chance.
Of course, having a debate wouldn't concern me a bit because
you'd clean him up. But the only thing of it is
you have any flair at all.
No, you'd kill him. But the only problem is then he automatically elevated, gives him prestige.
Well, it isn't just the prestige. I don't want to give him all that. I just don't want to give him all that coverage.
Right.
You know, on prime time.
Right.
Let him get his own prime time.
Sure.
Don't you love how Ziegler was the yes man there? But there were no more debates, of course, until after Nixon had resigned and Gerald Ford took over. And Ford was trailing Jimmy Carter. He needed a boost, so he agreed to a debate in 1976, 16 years after the first one. And today, no candidate can really avoid debating. Charlie, Nora?
Bill, you know, I love President Nixon saying, of course, let him get his own prime time. But did President Nixon have a legitimate reason for denying those debates in 1972?
No, come on. This doesn't pass the laugh test. I mean, the national security argument was one that Lyndon Johnson used, too, because of the Vietnam War going on. But surely presidents since then have debated, and they've known lots of national security secrets, and they haven't spilled them out there. The only thing that really makes sense to a sitting president is he doesn't want to give his opponent equal footing. And that's exactly what Nixon was also saying.